Morning, everybody. My name is Sherry McDaniel, and I'm the Vice President of the Board. I'll be filling in today for John Frias, who will be absent today. I call this meeting to order. Today is September the 26th. The time is 9 a.m. We've established quorum minus John Frias, who sent an email in today for an excused absence.
Make a motion to excuse Mr. Frias.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sherman and a second by Mr. Robertson. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so his absence will be excused. At this time, we will do the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Oh, Heavenly Father, please give us your guidance to make the best decisions for our business, our ratepayers, and our community. Also, please watch over and heal John Frias, who had surgery yesterday and is still recovering in the hospital. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will go to agenda item C, public comment. GVSUD welcomes public participation. If you are unable to attend the meeting, a written comment with your name and the topic or agenda item that you wish to address can be emailed or delivered to GVSUD's office located at 605 FM 465, Marion, Texas 78124. Attention to Ashland Ford, Public Information Officer, at aford@gvsud.org. Written comments must be submitted and received no later than 3 p.m. on September 25th, 24. Please remember that public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Time may not be shared or ceded to another citizen. I see by this full list, we have a full house today to discuss. We are going to have to adhere to the 3 minutes. We do have, we have to recess at 10 o'clock because of, we have to go in executive session at 10 a.m. When we come back out, we can continue the public comments if everyone wants to stay, but we do have to adhere to the 3 minutes. Mr. Sherman will be timing you and will notify you when you get to your 3 minutes. So we just ask, please try to stick with it as much as you can so we can move along, okay? The first one is Deb Hogg. Oh, okay.
Through him, see if who.
Well, this is the one side, so. Okay. Bill Fisher.
And please make sure your microphone is on, sir.
Green light.
Can you hear me? Honorable board members, good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Fisher. I'm the president of the Lake Placid Property Owners Association, Citizens United for Lake Placid, or as we have affectionately refer to it as CULP. And I'm here to communicate our lake group's opposition to the water service agreement proposed by the Flying Bar D development. The development represents so many damaging impacts on the Guadalupe River, Lake Placid, the environmental impact on the ecosystem and of Dead Man's Creek, as well as public safety of the local community that relies on Lake Placid for fishing and recreational opportunities. This isn't the first time I've spoken about this, and every time I have this conversation with board members such as yourself, I just find it difficult to understand how reasonable elected officials would approve this project after considering all the negative implications and after all the negative feedback. I firmly believe the utility district should consider all the aspects of the planned development that will be negatively impacted by the approval of the non-standard water service agreement and the resulting development. A main consideration is property owners on the river and on the lake is the effects of the Guadalupe River. I know this isn't necessarily what your considerations are, but don't be fooled. The treated wastewater that they propose is pollution. Your actions would participate in helping to approve the wastewater basically being flushed down the Guadalupe River. And I believe there are some property owners that are further south of Lake Placid who would be affected as well. If you've lived here long enough and paid attention to Texas Parks and Wildlife, you know, the Texas Parks and Wildlife in its analysis of Texas waterways states that the Guadalupe River is one of the most popular rivers in Texas. Why would you be a part of so negatively impacting such a natural resource in our area and in our county? With the slowing flows, and although we've had rain, I've had rain at my ranch, which has been glorious, but the flows on the river are so diminished and are projected to be so diminished, as I'm sure you're well aware, that such additional phosphorus in the treated wastewater would increase or would create nutrient accumulation, resulting in the increase of productivity of ecosystems, primarily productivity, excessive growth and decay, which will increase the growth of undesirable microorganisms, plants, and potentially further impact the effects due to lack of oxygen and a severe reduction in the water quality. The other concerns that we have as it relates to the project in its entirety are the detrimental effects of the storm runoff on water quality and erosion, the increased risk of flooding on Deadman's Creek and resulting Guadalupe River. And members of COLP and those property owners who live on the lake have a vested interest in the infrastructure that is now being constructed, and as we know, the new dam, and we feel that could be at risk. Damages to the wetlands for the Deadman's Creek, wastewater release in the Guadalupe River, the increased risk of pollution from the groundwater resources, the strain on domestic water supplies, and increased water costs.
Your time is, finish your thoughts, sir, but
Okay, I mean, basically, I just want to, the developer is putting in 14, we understand the plan is for 1,400 homes on approximately 300 acres. That's quite concentrated. And we just have a hard time understanding, as I stated earlier in this, why that's the type of development this county wants to have, especially in light of the water resource problems we have now and will currently have. So I'd like to ask, in closing, along with the members of COLP and the Lake Placid community, I'd like to ask the utility district to reconsider its support for a non-standard water service agreement and deny the developer's request for such an agreement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fisher, for your comments. Next up, we have Craig Russell.
Thank you for having me. Craig Russell, President and founder of the SS American Memorial located at Lazy Ranch. I spoke last month. I won't belabor the facts that President Bill Fisher has laid out in reference to the opposition to Flying D-Bar Ranch. I am speaking on behalf of the community. I'd like to see a show of hands of everybody here that is opposed to the Flying Bar D Ranch. But I am here today to show you, I laid before you some history that I think will give you a visual of our opposition in reference to my family's place. The property is a 102-acre parcel located on the west fence line of the Flying Bar D, 1 mile. It's the whole entire length. The plat that you see before you is not the Flying Bar D. It's the Lazy U Ranch in 1980 when my father-in-law, James Olbrich, had sold it to a developer. Now, what is unique to this is what you're seeing in front of you there is 100 acres, or basically 100 acres with 158 homes platted on it, the entirety of it, to give you a visual of what that might look like for a development that is less than 198 acres with 1,100 homes presented to be put on it. Again, this goes through the whole length of our property. It all flows down at an elevation rate drop of over 100 feet and ends in the corner of Deadman's Creek and our property. I am not opposed, as I said last month, to development. I am opposed to unplanned development. This here is very unplanned. It has no benefit to this community other than the developers and their pocketbooks, pure and simple. We all know this. My family is not going anywhere. This organization is not going anywhere, as y'all know. We have a park planned, and the runoff to this was declined by the city of San Antonio when my father-in-law sold it to the developer in the 80s, not once, but twice, and by the county, and it's in the paper. And they walked away after 5 years of paying on the money to my father-in-law that carried the note because they couldn't get it off the ground for the very simple reason, runoff. The 1972 flood had just happened, and the Seguin City Council, along with the Guadalupe County Commissioners, understood what runoff looked like. It was in front of them. Today, we have not had a flood in a long time. But I can personally tell you that I have been through 5 of them, and the ranch has been through 6 of them. I know what 98 looks like. I know what 2000 looks like. I know what 2002 looks like. And I know what 2005 looks like because I dug out of every single one of them on our property that has over 1,500 foot of frontage with 800 feet of it running in Dead Bends Creek. 1,100 homes on a footprint of that size will be devastating. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to be courteous and just give you a little hand signal. I don't want to come across as, cutting you off, but thank you for,
Thank you, Mr. Russell, for your comments. Next is, let's see if I can pronounce this, Alan Heyendler. Okay,
Linedecker.
then it was just me not being able to read your print.
That's right. Good morning. I'm also in opposition to the Flying Bar D project, but I'm going to speak as a ratepayer of the district. I live in Cibolo. We recently just got a rate increase, which is reasonable. My concern is this project is outside the district's boundaries. Secondly, with stretched water resources in South Texas, South Central Texas in general, I don't know if that's such a smart idea to extend and go outside our boundaries. We still got a lot of room of growth within the district itself, and I think that's where the focus needs to be for the planning. So that's the perspective as a ratepayer. I understand all the concerns of the folks that are going to be directly affected with properties along the river and such. But again, as a ratepayer, I believe we need to concern ourselves with the prospect of water resources getting thinner, not thicker, and potential of additional growth within the district as it exists. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Next up is Liz Hilsdorf. Okay, no problem. Okay. The next would be, if you want to speak, because he put if necessary, Grant McFarland.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm going to try to thread the needle without getting the hook on the 3 minutes and without repeating what everybody else has said. My name is Grant McFarland. I live at 258 Riverview Road on Lake Placid. I'm opposed to the application for a couple of specific reasons that I think haven't really been touched on yet. I'm assuming that as part of the process for the application for non-standard water retail service, that there was a detailed water service plan completed. And I looked online and I looked at what the things are that go into that. And I'm just curious if anybody has actually put pen to paper to figure out what the lot coverage is for 1,400 houses on 312 acres with streets and driveways and the houses themselves. If you just divide the numbers, it's less than 1/4 of an acre per house. That doesn't include any of the streets or driveways or pools or anything else that people might put in. And I'm curious if somebody has put pencil to paper to determine the permeable versus impermeable surface, because all of that, as y'all know, goes into what the runoff is from this proposed property. And all of that runoff, as y'all know, goes into Dead Man's Creek and then into the Guadalupe River. So I'm just curious if anybody has actually made those calculations and if they're available anywhere for us to look at. The water application has 2 specific things that are supposed to be disclosed One of them is domestic gallonage and one of them is irrigation gallonage. Again, I'm wondering what was put on that application for those numbers, because at least the irrigation gallonage has to go somewhere. If you're out there watering your lawn, it's going to go into Dead Man's Creek. It's going to go into the Guadalupe River. And I'm curious if anybody has determined whether or what that number is in conjunction with the permeable versus non-permeable analysis. So those are things I think that are important to look at, important to know in considering this application. And I would ask the board respectfully within my 3 minutes to deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. Is there anybody else that wants to speak? Okay. Please stand up and state your name.
My name is Deb Haug, and I live at 18 Kiowa Trail, which is the development known as Placid Heights, right at Red Mill Dam. I don't know if it's appropriate to bring this up here, but the first thing I thought of when I heard about this was the traffic situation in Leisner Road, and that is a blind curve that goes steeply downhill. And there have been 3 wrecks that I have witnessed there already this year. There may have been more. I happen to have to turn back and go another route to get around 3 wrecks there. It's where Leisner Road comes in and where the exit of this subdivision is going to be is, excuse me, on a 2-lane country road. And it's very dangerous. They've already put up a caution light there because of the accidents. And if you have 1,100, 1,400 homes going in there, that's going to make that much worse and much more dangerous. Also, I used to live in Parkview Estates, which is one subdivision down the river on the other side of Red Mill Dam. And I lost my house in 1998, my automobiles, everything I owned to the 98 flood. And this is just going to make that flooding worse. When we lost our home, we said we're going to move to the highest hill in Seguin, and we did. And never mind that I got struck by lightning twice after that. But anyway, the flooding situation on the Guadalupe River is astronomical. And after that experience in 98, I don't ever want to see something like that again. And putting all of those homes on a 100-foot drop into the river is just, it's going to increase the possibility of having another 1998 flood. So I ask you to deny this application. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Howe, for your comments. Sir, please state your name.
I'm Levi Anderson, 3rd generation that's lived on 725, and I have my 4th generation right here, Clifton Augustus Anderson, born there on 725. I was physically born there 42 years ago. Believe it or not, there's a log cabin built on 725. It was a slave shack built in the 1860s. And I joke around when I tell my friends, I said, hey, I'm born in a slave shack, and I physically was. Nonetheless, I don't need to reiterate all the comments of the physical effects that are going to happen if the community was brought in. And I'm here a little bit more to bring some of the emotional effects that go on. Traffic is a fine statement. Anybody that lives on 725 right now gets to deal with a racetrack. It's unbelievable. I have to drive a tractor up that road to go mow my parents' property up on Elm Creek. And boy, it's a fine day when people pass you shooting you the bird all day long. And you're there in non-prime traffic hours. And then, goodness gracious, you sit on your porch and you watch this herd of cars just go by. Obviously, the vehicles are not under your control. You're underwater. But, you know, sometimes we have to act in certain areas. Brave and valiant men have to act, and women, to make decisions that help the betterment of the community. And you guys are in control of that. Nonetheless, I'm sitting here with 4th generations, and so we're asking you to deny this application because it has an effect on a lot of people. There's a lot of livestock on that road. There are a lot of livestock that are affected through Dead Man's Creek when fences are down. I don't know if they're going to try to add a 4-lane road to that. I don't know what's in proposal for that, but that would be a absolute disaster. But nonetheless, I stand before you, 4 generations I represent with other friends and family in this room today. I'd say it will have a drastic effect of history and people's lives that go on, all for the betterment of somebody's pocketbook that doesn't live here. We should remember that.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for your comments. Anybody else like to get up and speak? Go. Please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Edward Hillsdorf, and of course, I live on Lake Placid. We appreciate you all having this meeting so that we all have a chance to speak. The one thing that I know that hasn't really talked about is the population growth that's going to be determined on Lake Placid. We already know that the boat ramp is a public access. So not only do we have uncontrolled about how many people are going to be on the lake at any given time, we also understand now that with the subdivision coming in, that's going to increase the load. Now, I do know, and I don't have the specifics on it, that you can only have so many people on the lake, just like you can have so many people in the building. That requires guidance. And adding these homes, and again, as Mr. Russell said, I'm not opposed to having the construction or building anything anywhere within the county, but I do feel that's going to be an asset, it's going to be not be an asset to Guadalupe River or Lake Placid by putting all those homes in, because now, excuse me, we're increasing the amount of people. Now, not only the people, when you talk about 12 to 1,400 homes, but you're also talking about how many people are going to be on the river, okay? And I don't know how many people have been there on any given weekend in a holiday just to see how busy Lake Placid can be. Now, we know it hasn't been that way in the last several years because the dams broke. But if you come out on a holiday, you'll see that you can hardly be out on the river itself or on the lake to enjoy yourself because the amount of people that have come that have public access. So let's take that public access individuals, and now let's add the 1,100 homes that are going in on an average of, 2,000 people coming with a boat. And we already know there's what's that called? A marina that's been put down there. So once again, now they got a place they can put a boat. So that's our place. We couldn't help that. However, but now, how many people are you allowed to be on a lake at any given time during a holiday when you know that's when everybody's going to be on the water? And it really adds confusion, congestion. And we've already had several drownings out there, as you all may know, and they were simple things. They weren't complicated. Had several boat accidents that have happened out there. These are the things that I could see could be a problem for everybody, the amount of people being on the river. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Go ahead, ma'am. State your name.
My name is Treva Hicks. I live on Placid Heights. Actually, it's on Indian Trail, but we're over in the Placid Heights subdivision. I've been here, I came here right after Flood of 98. I saw what was left in the trees of Flood of 98. My concern is with all the growth, because we have across from Vogel School, all those homes, water. Water is a big issue for all of us. I'm afraid we're going to run out of water for those who live here, let alone adding more all the time. Spring Hills, they're starting to max out too. They're not even allowing some places to get water. That's for the people who already live here and planning on spending the rest of our lives here, not somebody that might come and go, or like they said, it's a big subdivision. It's going to affect the Guadalupe River and the livestock. We're running out of, rangeland. Everything is affected by more building because the water has to go into the ground so we can have more water later on. The livestock, pasture land, fields, all those things are being taken away and you can't put them back. And I just wanted to make that statement. I hope you slow this down so that we can maybe start finding a way to do this properly and safely and not overrun our little town. Our county is going to suffer at some point down the road. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Hicks. Anybody else? Yes, no? Okay. We will end the public comment. And move on to,
Excuse me, Ms. McDaniel, can I real quick take a little step out of order? Mr. Russell, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but can I see a show of hands of everybody that's here opposed to Flying Bar D, please? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McDaniel.
okay, Mr. Cooper. Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item D, consent agenda. All items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the board and will be approved by one motion. There'll be no discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered and action taken as necessary as part of the order of business. Everybody okay with it?
I'll make a motion if none of the other directors have any comments that we approve items D1 through D5 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sherman and a second by Mr. King. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will move on to agenda item E. Here updates on the following items from GV Sud, General Manager, Staff, and Committee Chairs, and take action as necessary. Number one, employee recognition. Mr. Phil Gage.
Good morning, board, and good morning, our fine attendees we have here today. I'm Phil Gage. I'm the general manager. It's nice to see you all here today. One of my favorite things to do in the agenda, and the board lets me do this every month, is to recognize some of our employees, right? So some of you are ratepayers in here, and some of you may not be, but we've got a great team in Green Valley that takes care of a lot of folks every day, and I just like to recognize them. So first, what I'd like to do, I'm going to ask Jeanette to come up. Come on up, Jeanette. So Jeanette's a member of our customer service team, right? And then the great thing our customer service team does, just to put it into perspective, they field, let's just take the month of August, last month, they fielded about 6,136 calls, right, from our customers across the board, taking care of them in various ways. And we get letters from folks and cards all the time. And Jeanette got one here today from a couple who unfortunately had an unfortunate event in their family, and they took good care of them as they transitioned, to their service, to the rest of their family. And they send great comments and cards, and they even got flowers sometimes, right? So I just want to highlight, our great customer service that we have going on. And Jeanette, this is for you, and I'd like to recognize you. She also gets this little coin of excellence, right? So there you have it.
Thank you
So Jeanette, thank you very much. And I also have two others to recognize. So Clarissa and RJ, please come forward. So come up, guys. So Clarissa and RJ, so we have within the Green Valley Special Utility Districts, we basically have 3 different watersheds, right? I mean, so it's a large service area, about 93,000 square acres, and you guys are pretty well aware about where that is located. But we have one sewer plant that Green Valley operates right now, and Clarissa and RJ are the operators of that. And so, with concerns about the environment, I can guarantee you one thing, that this young lady right here, she's a Class A licensed operator, right? Operating our sewer plant. And the effluent that we put out meets and exceeds rather the TCEQ standards. And it's very important to us that we do that. And RJ does the same thing, right? So RJ and Claire together are a team that keeps our wastewater effluents at the right levels, and they do a great job on that. And I just want to recognize them today because they are taking care of the environment, and that's an important thing. So I have something for you. And you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all the staff members that went above and beyond and got one of Mr. Gage's great gold coins.
It's very important.
Okay, moving on to E2, Business and Operations. 2I, General Manager Update, Mr. Gage.
Okay, Board of Directors, in the board packet today, I have a brief memo for you, just a couple of updates. So in staffing levels right now, the memorandum says we're at 53. We're actually at 52 today. Since I wrote this memo last week, we do have two employees that are departing for other opportunities with other places, but we did add 2 employees to our customer service team. So the figures that I just told you, what we answered last month was handled by 4 representatives, and now we have 6 representatives to handle that volume as it is increasing with our number of customers. So with that said, we're currently at 52. The next item that I would highlight that's on the memo is backflow testing. Backflow prevention devices are a requirement by TCEQ. We have a number of them in our system. In our last comprehensive inspection or investigation by TCEQ, we had 30 of those that were not within standard. What has to happen with that on an annual basis, the customer themselves have to have their backflow device tested, and it's to prevent any hazard to the public water system. So what we've done with these 30 outstanding ones, we've sent notices to the affected customers, and we're going to actually provide the tests for them to ensure that we get in compliance, because it's very important to protect everyone's water system. And this is a key part that we keep pressing forward with, and it's a requirement. So I just want to update the board on that. We're taking action on those 30 that were out of date, and then we're putting a program into place to ensure compliance moving forward. The last 2 items on there is just a quick update on the wastewater master plan. I won't go into that. And then the last item is later in the agenda, I'll present a proposal for the Green Valley Strategic Plan for the board's consideration, and we'll do that at that time. So depending on any questions from my update memo.
Okay.
Moving on to the operations report, I'll deliver that today. All information is in there with the appropriate graphs, but just keep an eye on a couple of things. Our sewer flow, or our wastewater daily flow, now is up to 0.09, and that capacity is 36.88% of our 0.25 capacity. So we're doing okay, but we are pressing forward with the expansion at Santa Clara to increase that capacity to meet the demand there. Just in terms of water usage, we're a bit off in August. What I mean by that is we didn't use as much water as we had projected to use, and you'll see that in the operations report. So, I mean, it's just how things ebb and flow. That's why you see that difference. We did not use as much water in August as we had projected that we would. Meter sets continued to drive at the rate that we believe they're driving at. So during the month of August, we set almost 100 meters, so 96 meters during the month of August. That keeps us really close to being on track to keep growing at a rate of 1,000 new meters, a year, a calendar year is how we're doing that. But that's just continuing to track exactly on the trend that we believed it would be. And then there's also work orders that are also laid out in there. 983 work orders this month. So the water maintenance crews have been relatively busy fixing leaks and doing tie-ins across the system. So if there's any specific questions on the operations report, we can dive into it, but it's all there in the packet.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Gage.
Thanks, sir.
Item E3, CRWA Board of Trustees post-meeting updates. Mr. Cooper or Mr. Sherman?
Steve, I'll lead off. The items I have highlighted from my notes here, under the Lake Dunlap Water Treatment Plant, there's some, the strainers, part of the treatment process, are aging. Greg, is that a good way to describe it? Mr. Swoboda is working on that for CRWA as well. Thank you for joining us, standing in the back. We got a full house. So Garver is working on some improvements to the strainers that we do have budgeted as part of the CRWA. They had an expanded budget this year to take care of some of this maintenance on the facility. So we've got that going. STV, another one of the engineering firms, is working on the upgrades to welds number 2 and number 14. This is the expansion of available water that I've briefed you on before that can come to Green Valley, be about 920 additional acre feet of water once that is upgraded. So we received a report on that, and that is clicking along. We also had a construction committee meeting at CRWA where they gave a little bit more detailed briefing on that. but we should be receiving flow mid-25, the additional flow off of those wells. So I'll keep you posted on the progress of that report. Moving down to, I highlighted the construction committee. That's where I have that selected. May of 2025 is the date the construction committee suggested we could be receiving additional water off of those wells. And then Steve, I'm going to throw this one to you, but give the briefing on it. There was a proposal to basically a headhunting service to find a new water resources manager. Steve and I both voted no, in addition to one other director. My opinion was, I think Mr. Gage has demonstrated we can find high-level staff internally without going out and spending tens of thousands of dollars on a service. That was my reason for voting no. Steve, do you want to jump in here?
Nick and I were of the same mind on that one. I think the total bill was pushing $40,000 or $50,000 in additional expense just to be able to find a water resources manager, and we didn't feel that that was an appropriate spend, having just spent $80,000 on a general manager search. So we believe there are easy ways to find good people.
Well, the motion carried, but Mr. Cooper and I had extended discussion in the meeting, supporting our opinion, not in favor of it. So that's all I had. Do you have anything else, Steve?
Okay, thank you for that. Moving to E4, CRWA Board of Managers post-meeting updates. Mr. Gage.
So the board of managers this month, I did not attend this month. There was also several managers were not there, so there was no business executed, so no report rendered there.
Okay, thank you. E6, Board of Directors Committee Meeting Updates. Finance Committee, which is me. Oh, did you have a report?
Yes, on AR.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We'll go back to E5.
So from the ARWA meeting yesterday, and for the room, I'll give you a little briefing. CRWA is one of the locations Green Valley acquires our wholesale water. So we buy wholesale water from multiple sources that we distribute to our system. So that's what we were just talking about, CRWA. ARWA, Alliance Regional Water Authority, is another wholesale water source that is just now coming online. So I also attend those meetings. Just a little background for the room that may not be aware of it. So we had our meeting yesterday. Under the executive director's report, we have a target date when our new 750 acre feet of water from ARWA will be delivered to the Lake Dunlap treatment plant of October 15th. I have been pressing Mr. Moore strongly about why that date has been slipping. We've had some problems with the pipeline. I asked him how firm we were on that, and we are not extremely firm. So I expect that to maybe slip a couple weeks, but the target date is October 15th. I've coordinated with staff so that we're expecting it. That water will be delivered to us in a roundabout way. There's still some work that has to be done at the facility to get the final installation done. But David McMullen with CRWA, the lead operator of the plant, Gage and I talked to him for a good while after the construction committee meeting to make sure we're going to get that water when it's available, and it will come to us through another area, but we will get our additional 750 acre feet. We also ran through all of our services. We renewed all of our agreements with consultants. We approved hydrological service agreement. We approved a PR agreement. We approved legal counsel with Lloyd Gosling, Rochelle, and Townsend. We approved a government relations service. James, I know you wouldn't be super excited about that, but it was generally low cost, lower than we had been paying. So I was in favor of that. We approved a audit agreement, $11,250. Sounded like fantastic value compared to some numbers we've seen in the past. I wanted to make a point, make sure you heard that. Phil was listening in on the call. We approved an agreement for groundwater permitting. We approved our health care for the employees. We approved an adjustment to the retirement program through TCDRS, Texas County and District Retirement Services. We increased the match another 50% for the employees, which that needed to happen. Some of the benefits at ARWA are not up to par, so we approved that. Lastly, the water treatment plant that is coming online, the 30-day performance test began yesterday. So I'd briefed the board previously on the challenges with that new facility coming online to provide some additional waters, but the 30-day commissioning period started yesterday, and all seems to be going well on day one of that when I received the report. The 3 critical path items, the communications gateways have been deployed. Those are working. The one communications gateway at the treatment plant itself is experiencing some interference with the metal building it's mounted to. That's an easy fix. They're going to take it off, put it on a wooden pole or something. But the wells that were non-operational earlier have all been remedied. Those are fixed. And the one remaining filter that needed some spare parts installed, that has been fixed. So all 3 of the critical path items have been resolved. The pipeline I referenced to Lake Dunlap, segment E2, they needed to extend it. It seemed to be, in my opinion, a bit of a design issue. There was talk of sending Green Valley the cost of this, sending CRWA the cost of this. ARWA, the top, water board, is gonna absorb the cost. We have surplus money in some of our engineering budgets that we're going to borrow from to pay for the design and the construction of extending the pipeline another 300-400 feet on the plant site. So that is not going to be a cost to Green Valley. And lastly, we approved a request for qualifications for professional services to identify water resources. So looking for more water in the area that we can obtain rights to. Just in passing, staff made a comment referencing direct reuse, which I questioned strongly. I'm not in favor of direct reuse, and they are well aware of that now. And now I'm aware that that is on the table at all. So I will be paying close attention to that. And we have one item that we need to approve on the October 24th board meeting that Mr. Gage has already coordinated with, and it was quite a long meeting. That is much longer a report than I usually give.
Mr. Sherman, if I could add one thing. So that last item that Mr. Sherman was talking about, we should receive some documents to review that I will get out to the full board and as far in advance as possible of the October meeting. But we have an agenda item in October related to ARWA future debt that we need to consider during the October board meeting.
Mr. Sherman, just one question. I think I heard somewhere in there the answer to it. You had said that we're anticipating ARWA water getting to us October 15th or thereabout, or could slip a little bit. They have resolved the communication issues that wouldn't hinder that delivery in any way?
No, the 3 items, the critical path items at the treatment plant, have been resolved. The new treatment plant for the group, it's a new treatment plant, new water sources, new pipelines, distributing water to Kyle, Buda, Canyon Regional, Crystal Clear. It's a conglomerate of organizations.
Yeah.
They have resolved all that at the water treatment plant. They're producing water. They might actually want to send us some water and load test the plant, a large volume. That's more of a CRWA reference because they'll have to receive it. But everything looks like it's tracking in the right direction.
So our end of the communication system, communication and control for us to receive water is going to be functional and ready.
That's right. All of the delivery points communicate with the booster pump station that's located in Maxwell.
Right.
All of those communications are working. It's the communication from the booster pump station back to the treatment plant that we're getting a little bit of interference intermittently, and they've got a plan to resolve that.
Yeah, it's easy to resolve. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, Mr. Sherman, there was a post on social media that Alliance has completed pipeline segments A, B, and D. They've been tested and are ready for use. but segment E is close to being completed but should be completed this month. What is the difference between E and E2 that you mentioned?
So I'm gonna visually, so the well fields are over in the far to the east. Segment A is from the well fields to the, no, I'm sorry. Well fields to the plant are part of those two projects, part of the plant. Segment A is from the plant 50 mile or 40 miles, whatever it is. And then segment B picks up from there, goes over to the booster pump station. Segment C goes north from Maxwell. And the
That hasn't begun yet, correct?
C is underway, but A and B deliver water from the plant to the booster station. D goes south to a take point for Crystal Clear, I believe, or the other SUD. And then segment E goes further south and delivers water to Lake Dunlap, where we will take the water. So segment E is that issue with the groundwater we ran into, I reported on last month, where I physically went and inspected the work to see what was going on. They've resolved that. That delayed the project a little bit. They've gotten under the river, and now they're tying into Lake Dunlap. Now they're pressure testing the lines. All the pipe is laid. They're just testing everything now.
And E, so E2, it's all the same project and it'll all be done this month?
Tentatively or target date October 15th, but
Because that's the one that impacts us.
that's the one that physically, that's the last reach of pipeline that delivers the water to our take point at Lake Dunlap. And it's 750 acre feet is our volume.
Thank you.
Okay. E6, so it's the Board of Directors Committee meeting updates. I is the Finance Committee. I'm the chair of that. We had our meeting on September the 5th, and basically, all we discussed was the 2025 budget. So that was pretty much all there was to report on that. And we all did vote on the budget last week, and it was approved. Moving on to F, GV Sud Capital Improvement Projects and Development Projects Report. Are you doing that, Mr. Gage?
I will be doing that
Okay.
today.
Okay.
It'll be very brief. I didn't put the report together, so I was just going to hit the high notes, and I'll endeavor to answer any questions you've got. And if I can't answer them today, I will make sure to follow up. Currently, GVSUD has 53 projects in design, 47 in construction, and 2 in closeout, totaling 102 projects as of this month. A couple of the projects I've been involved with since starting this month, sorry, that I could give you some updates on. We did receive the 30% design on the Santa Clara wastewater treatment plant updates or upgrades. The Abbott Road water line is currently being constructed. And last week we met with Cibolo, and we've been coordinating with them in regards to the conflicts with our line and the Tully Road expansion. Like I had mentioned, it was pretty brief this time. I'll be much more detailed next time. But if you've got any questions, please let me know.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, moving on. Item G, review and consider water acquisition fee assessment and take action as necessary. Mr. Gage.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. So for the board, what we're doing this time, we've been looking at water acquisition fees. It's in combination with, we looked at impact fees a couple of months ago, got those addressed. We're waiting those to be approved by TCEQ. But when we're looking forward to development and development supporting acquisition of water in the future, our acquisition fee is too low. I think we all recognize that fact that our acquisition fee hasn't been updated in years. So what the staff did, we went out and we had UEG do an acquisition fee study, and what kind of the methodology we took, and Gary's going to present it, is to really look at the cost of water over time in terms of debt that we're carrying for these various projects, one of which we're talking about ARWA a while ago. This accounts for that. And so we've done the analysis here. We'll recommend that we do approve a new number, and then we'll bring a resolution back to the board once the board considers and approves next month to get that laid out. So I'll hand it over to Gary to actually present the product.
Good morning. Provided a memo explaining how we got to this point with the water acquisition fee assessment and recommendation. Wasn't going to spend a lot of time on the memo, but I wanted to spend more time in the spreadsheet that followed it or was attached to it. That spreadsheet details out all of your water resources. Some of those you're producing water from today. Some of them are contracted water that you'll use in the future. And some of them are projects that have to be built in the future that are uncontracted. And really wanted to highlight, there's a few cells in that spreadsheet that are orange in color, highlighted in orange. Those are estimated costs. We went to ARWA, we went to CRWA and said, we know these projects are out there. They're future phases. What do they cost? So those are projects that we didn't get feedback on as far as what the dollar amount was. We worked with staff here at Green Valley to settle on a number. The reason the ARWA 1C and 1D is highlighted is that one's not contracted, and we didn't get a firm number from ARWA of what that number was. It was an estimate, so we highlighted that. Everything else that isn't highlighted is either contracted or bonded, so we know exactly what that number is as far as remaining costs. In the third row of that, that's acre footage of supply. I highlighted that one for ARWA Phase 2 because you have a contract for ARWA Phase 1 now, but that contract says in the future, whenever Phase 2 comes, you would have a new contract for Phase 2 or amend the first contract. But for planning purposes, ARWA has said everybody comes in at the same percentage as their first commitment in Phase 1. So that is the number that came from ARWA, but that is not contracted. So you may get to that point in time, in the next few years, that discussion is going to come up for action at the board level. If someone drops out of that project, there would be more water on the table, or Green Valley wants to change their number. We highlighted that just because it's not a firm contracted number, but you do have an agreement that says you would come in at the same percentage and work that out in the future, depending on commitments from other partners in that project. So going through all of that, the second page of that spreadsheet is the actual calculation part of that. So it's a really simple calculation after we have all the numbers, so we know what your total debt service remaining is on those projects. This includes those projects that are projected future debt service. And we know how much water, how many acre feet of water that those projects produce, 7,952 acre feet. So it's a simple calculation down to the cost per acre foot. We know from the Water Master Plan that your average connection uses 0.33, a third of an acre foot per year per connection. So that gets us down to the actual cost per connection. And then we calculated this similar to the way we've done kayak fees and water impact fees in the past under Chapter 395 of the Local Government Code, and gave a 50% reduction. The memo explains a little bit of the methodology there is to insulate you against downturns in development. So you have to be able to prove up that you can pay your debt service if you have a few slow years, depending on how development goes. So that's the end of the calculation there shows a maximum allowable water acquisition fee of $6,991.23, $6,991.23. So you could set anything from 0 to that number. Currently, your fee is $2,000. In rough numbers, you're setting about 1,950 to 1,000 meters a year. So, good.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. But that $2,000 mark, can anyone quote when we made that last adjustment, how many years ago it was?
I don't know that I referenced a date. I want to say from memory, it's 2014, 2013 or 14. But I can get you that date of when it actually.
I knew it was
it's
quite a while ago, and we've had some inflation since that time. So the cost to purchase the wholesale water has gone up with that inflation.
Yeah, and you've secured additional bonds through CRWA and ARWA. Back whenever that original fee was set, ARWA was just in planning. It was just very early and there was no debt at that time. It was all projections. Actually, at that point, the ARWA project was a $206 million project.
And I think it's 443
Yes.
now for the whole program.
Correct, yeah. Yep.
But we'll get you that date. I thought it was in there as well, but it's been a number of
We've
years.
discussed it before, but
Right.
For the rest of the board, I wanted to remind you that it was
Greater than 5
quite an
years.
extended period of time since we've looked at this
Yes.
fee.
So based on projected costs, so right now you're at 2,000 per EDU. That's roughly $2 million if you're setting 1,000 meters a year. With this new fee, if you went to the maximum allowable of, it's very close to $7,000 per EDU. That's a $5,000 delta, $5 million delta on an annual basis if you stay at the 1,000 meters per year, meter sets per year. So our recommendation is to consider the 6991. You can do anything between 0 and that number. Right now, yours is 2,000. And as Mr. Gage said, that would be put into a resolution at whatever number you want it to be. And then we need an effective date. In the past on fees, I think by statute, or by your policy, you're required to give a 30-day notice. In the past, what the district has done is give a 30 days notice, but then 60 days past that is the implementation date. So really, you're giving 90 days. That could be a specific date. You could say it's January 1 or whatever the board wants to do. But those are the two things we would need if you want to approve this at a specific number. What's the specific number and what's the effective date?
And then just to add on what Gary is saying, right? I mean, the acquisition fee, this supports future development, right? So what this allows us to do is to make the appropriate investments and to all potential water sources. I'm not going to single out just ARWA and CRWA. We're looking everywhere to ensure that we have enough water, moving into the future. And this fee allows that, and it doesn't put the cost on current ratepayers, but development would support development and the acquisition of water. So that's where we at it with that. And I think this number is appropriate. I agree with the number. I agree with the calculations. Travis and I look through, there's a number of documents supporting a simple summary that you see right now. I mean, so Gary went back and looked at audit reports, for several pages of documents. We just summed it down to where we arrived at the figure. I think it's a good figure. I'd recommend approval for it. And then, as I said, if the board approves, we will come back with a resolution next month to formally adopt it and process it in that manner.
And I'm looking for guidance from you on an effective date. If our policy says 30 days and previously we were not completely adhering to our policy, I don't know why we would have done that, but what do you recommend for?
I'd recommend calendar year. So we'll begin it in calendar year. That gives us enough time to appropriately get it passed, get it advertised, get into our operation policy to come effective for the first of the year. So 1 January.
January 1, 2025.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That'd be my recommendation.
I will, thank you, Gary. This is very detailed. The summary is exactly what I was looking for, how you got there, why, and then the effective date is what I needed from you. Thanks for putting this together. I will make a motion that the board adopts a water acquisition fee of $6,991.23, effective date January 1st, 2025.
And I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sherman and a second by Mr. Roberson. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Ms. McDaniel, point of order. The board should be able to discuss the matter. I have some question for the board.
Okay.
The water acquisition fee is I believe a temporary fix to a long-term issue of water costs. How often will we be re-examining this legally? Can we change those acquisition fees, and how often should we?
I'm going to defer to Gary on the timing question.
There's no regulatory authority or regulation on water acquisition fees, so you could change it monthly if you wanted to. I wouldn't recommend that. I would look at it annually during the budget cycle, prior to the budget cycle. As Mr. Gage mentioned, you're looking at a lot of different water supplies, so on a year-to-year basis, that may change of what your target is or where you're going to get future water. But you could do this on an annual basis. You could do it every 3 years. Definitely don't recommend going to the 10-year that the current study is. But I would definitely look at it annually. And it may just be a cursory review, pull out the spreadsheet and say, we didn't add anything, we didn't take anything away, the number's good. But if other sources come up or the acre footage or the dollar amount changes, you need to capture that calculation. So I would look at it annually, but probably change it every 2 to 3 years.
So, Mr. Cooper, I would add to that, what we're looking at doing is the same thing as our rate assessment, impact fees, and water acquisition. We're going to put that on our long-range calendar, and we're going to start hitting that before we get into budget development every year. And that's going to be something that we're going to get into a routine of doing, and that'll be approving our operations policy on an annual basis too, to make sure we capture all fees and updates. So that's the plan going forward.
And I like that because we won't be hitting, developers with a significant increase like we've done today. If we are doing moderate increases to keep up with the economy, if we stay on target, I find that much more reasonable than doing a significant, and then we've left money on the table that we need to spend to acquire the water.
My long-term concern is the haphazard approach that we've had to fees and expenses, and making sure that we're getting on a regular basis of verifying what we should be charging and what versus what we're paying, and that we're following law regarding the implementation of those expenses. So I'll get down off my soapbox, but this has been a long time coming, being able to really take a hard look at what our spends are. So thank you. That was all I had.
And Ms. McDaniel, I know we have a 10 o'clock call we've got to get on back there, but may we move to J3 before we go into executive session? Because I know that's what most of our guests are here to hear about. Do you mind if we?
No, that'd be fine.
And then Mr. Gage, do we have anything to discuss on J3 today?
So the only thing we have to discuss on J3 is the staff had a feasibility study updated, right? That based on the proposal that came from the developer on Flying Bar D Ranch. The feasibility study that came back basically stated that they need to go back to the drawing board. We're not to a point where we have enough information to give it to the board for a full vote. So, recommendation from staff is that we would table for today to gather the rest of that information in that report and move forward, October for a presentation. That's where we are right now. It's not ready for consideration because there's more data that needs to be gathered, and that's been provided back to the developer.
I'm going to be devil's advocate on this because we've been going over this for a long time.
Yes, sir.
And with our last meeting with them, I was extremely specific that I wanted information given to us. This sounds like a delay tactic on their part. I mean, they knew that we were planning on voting today. They knew that a lot of residents would be coming out today, most likely. And this really smells and screams of someone deliberately just didn't get a report done, so we would have to push this to another month. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm ready to vote. I'd like to say some stuff, but I think that I personally am ready to bring this to a vote if we need to. I don't need to see that information.
Mr. Gage, what is your recommendation for the board?
So the board obviously can do what they want to do. I don't have necessarily a position one way or another, on this particular, project. It's not my purview to do so. My recommendation would be, though, that we would complete the study, and the study is completed. It's in the developer's hand. Give them the opportunity to come back, make sense, so we have total information and the correct information. But it's up to the board. If you'd like to take action today, we could certainly do that. But if not, my recommendation would be to wait till October to get their proposal back based on the updated study. That would be my recommendation.
I would like to say one more thing on that. Again, I understand what you're saying, and sir, I definitely respect it. We need to get all the information that we possibly can before we make a decision. However, I'm going to go back to, this has been going on for, I'm going to say close to a year, if not longer than that. The developer has known what the residents' concerns were. The developer has known what the board's concerns were. The developer has known what the city's concerns were, all the cities involved. This hasn't been a surprise to the developer at any point at all. We have literally been tabling this for the last 8 months. I am done tabling it. This is, of course, my own personal. I think that they are deliberately dragging their butt on this. They knew what was going to happen today. They knew it. And we don't have that information. I personally am just flat out tired of tabling this.
Anybody else have any other discussion they want to make on this point?
Are we suggesting that we're going to bring this to a vote right now?
Motion, we can table it. We have to do one or the other.
And
Mr. Hendricks, correctly summarized the situation here.
Table it again or we vote on it
You,
again?
you
What are we
can
gonna-
table it or you can entertain a motion.
I put a motion forward that we do not approve the Flying Bar D LLC Water NSSA at 13681 FM 725 New Braunfels, Texas 78130 north intersection of Lesnar School Road and FM 725.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mr. Hendricks and a second by Mr. King.
And in summary, a yes vote is a denial of the acquisition. Is that how the?
As the motion was stated, that's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
I say we do a roll call. We'll start with
Discussion.
There's
Oh,
time
good
for
discussion.
discussion if necessary.
roll call. Mr. Cooper?
Discussion real quick. If we deny this, how long will the developer have to wait to bring it back to us in the future? Just permanent.
No, I mean, anything can be brought back at any time. So
So even though we deny today, it can be brought back to us next month?
they could do that.
But we wouldn't have to put it on the agenda. Am I correct in that?
That's also correct.
So they could bring it back and we could say we're tired of, this is James Hendricks speaking. This isn't the board of GVSUD speaking. I just want that completely crystal clear. So when someone gets in trouble, it's going to be me. Yes, they can bring it back, but we can either just flat out deny to put it back onto our agenda because we wasted so much, I'm sorry, I can't say that. That's because we spent so much time on it. Or we could say, you know what, there's some new information. Maybe this information maybe there's the golden key or something in that information that they graciously didn't give to us today. Well, then they can bring it up then and they can bring it. And if it is enough to motivate the board, then maybe they can get it back on our agenda.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Once they see the new water acquisition fee, it may go away anyway.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. So would you like to do a roll call now, Mr. Cooper?
I will vote no on approving a wastewater service agreement.
Hang on. So the way the motion was stated, a yes vote here is denial. If you wanted to,
Okay, all right, then reverbalize it for me.
The motion was to not approve
Not,
the service agreement. So that's the way it was worded. And so
is a no.
an I is agreement not to approve the service agreement.
Should I reword this so that?
just run it. Just
No,
leave
it's
it.
fine.
I vote aye.
I also vote aye.
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 I am voting aye, but I also wanted to say, someone brought up potassium levels. I just want to throw this out there, that our staff is amazing. We actually have the lowest, I guess you look at it that way. We have the lowest potassium levels for discharge allowed in the state of Texas, so for us. And we actually kind of scratching our heads at it. But for the potassium being dropped, we are the lowest, just so everybody knows.
On the permit.
If 10 years from now, this happens to happen on the permit, then we are still stuck at the lowest potassium levels, just to take that off the table. But I also vote aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we are going to move to executive session. Closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.071-551.074 and/or 551.076 on matters upon which the attorney has the duty to report under Texas Rules of Disciplinary Conduct. The time is 10:08. Okay, we are returning from executive session. The time now is 11 a.m. We're going to move on to agenda item H, review GVSUD continuity of leadership policy and take action as necessary.
Before you do that, could you just announce that no action was taken during an executive
Okay.
session for the record? Thanks.
There was no action taken during executive session.
Thank you. Correct.
Now we will move on to item H.
Okay, Item H, directors, what this is, Green Valley has a succession plan that's a policy, a very old policy that's been up there for a while. It still addresses the previous general manager by name in it instead of by title. So John asked me to update this. So consulting with Shan, what we put together is a pretty simple succession policy. It basically identifies the key positions for succession, identifies the successors and the circumstances which we would do that. It directs the president of the board to maintain qualifications for general manager should I need to be replaced for a long-term absence. And then it directs me to maintain qualifications for those other key positions should they need to be replaced. It also has a timeline for implementation in there. And we set a mark of 6 months. Like if I'm going to be gone for a period of 6 months, then, the board needs to decide how to replace the general manager, and likewise for the others. Communication plan is listed. Very simple, replaces an old policy for your consideration and adoption as the board sees fit.
So we need action to accept the policy as presented.
So, yes, sir, if you'll make a motion to approve the policy, we'll do it, and then we'll have the president's signature on it. We'll do that at a later date.
Anybody else have commentary? I'll make a motion that we approve the Green Valley Special Utility District Continuity of Leadership Policy as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sherman and a second by Mr. King. Is there any discussion? We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's see, agenda item I, discuss a proposal on initiating a district strategic plan and take action as necessary. Mr. Gill.
Yes, ma'am. So for this, in the board package, you have a proposal from a consulting firm named Baker Tilly. I believe the board's familiar with them. But several months ago, Mr. Frias engaged me on developing a strategic plan, really looking beyond 5-10 year horizon, and I think it's pretty necessary thing to do as we lay out the course for Green Valley over the next 5 and 10 years. This is not a master plan in the sense that a water master plan is. Those things are very technical and related to projects and certain engineering functions. This is more of a strategic plan. So this is our ability as a board and staff and other stakeholders to decide what Green Valley wants to be in 10 years, and then how we're going to progress in a plan that's going to get us there in 10 years. It could address everything from our financial standing to our investments to our workforce, and then it's really how we see ourselves. This particular company and the proposals laid out here that we can flip through. This particular company has completed plans for Como County most recently, and they also have done GBRAs. And I really like the product that it comes out with because in the example of GBRA, it really focuses them on what their purpose is in life, which is summarized in my words to, protect the Guadalupe River Basin across the 10 counties in their instance, for future conservation and use. We need to determine what that is for Green Valley. What do we want Green Valley to be? And this company is very good at facilitating that, bringing the board together, and along with the senior staff and doing it. Their approach is laid out here. It's a pretty solid approach that I've seen in strategic planning myself over the years. It begins with basically stakeholder interviews, so we get everyone's input. And we do that across the company, we do that across the board, then we bring it together in workshops, and then we really define what our lines of effort are moving forward for the next 5 or 10 years, and put us some milestones in place to do that. Pretty excited about doing this. It's a relatively fast, what am I trying to say, timeline to get there, about 6 months for this to take place. The total cost as projected is $73,000 to do this. I did account for it in the FY25 budget as something that Mr. Frias and I had talked about getting done. So it is in the budget. That figure you see here is in the budget. And what I would like to ask the board to do is to authorize me to enter into this agreement with Baker Tilly and kick off our strategic planning for the next 5 and 10 years. So pending any questions or discussions from the board.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Haven't done one of these in a long time. And so the 73,000, I'm having a hard time swallowing that pill. Did we go look at anybody else and price shop at all?
So I did, and the other firms are not as good in this sector, if you would. So it was to me, it was quality over quantity. This particular one, because they've been very engaged in Central Texas, and I had some examples from others to look at, is pretty good. And I believe that Civilo also used them, but I don't want to state that affirmatively because I haven't looked at theirs in a while. But it's a very same sort of process. I kind of went with them solely because of their experience in Central Texas. The other ones I didn't have anything that I didn't have any stakeholder input, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
From my peers that recommended something else.
The 480 phone number, where is that from? Is a distance away from us here an issue, or is this mostly done remotely?
So
No.
the particular proposal they have for us, it'll be done in a hybrid, right? So when we do the stakeholder meetings, when we pull everyone together to really, do the hard planning, that'll be on site. Now, the interviews we're going to do will be virtual. That gives us, it reduces costs for one, but it also gives us options. I believe we have like 2 on-site workshops that we will do here, and then the remainder of it will be virtual. A lot of this work is actually with the staff too. It's not
Well,
necessarily with the
And
board.
I'll speak on behalf of Mr. Frias. I know this is something he has been pushing for quite a while. So I know he's in favor of it. We've got it budgeted. It's a fair bit, but seems like we will get a valuable product out of it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Gage? So have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, let me find it again here, that we authorize the general manager to initiate the district strategic plan with Baker Tilly for $73,450.
Good with that.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. King and a second by Mr. Robertson. Any other discussion? Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There.
Okay, we're moving on to agenda item J1. Consider non-standard water and or wastewater service agreements and take action as necessary. This is for J1, the Gorky Track, Lennar Homes, Water and SSA, east of Peyton Place and north of Wheel Road, Santa Clara Sewer Shed.
Good morning again. This development is a 258 EDU development, 258, 250 of those being residential meters and 8 of them being irrigation meters. The infrastructure, sorry, I got ahead of myself. The water availability for this, GVSUD does have adequate water supply through CRWA, Wells Ranch Phase 2, and ARWA Phase 1. No additional water rights or production capacity is required. The infrastructure impacts, there will be no offsite infrastructure impacts. No additional upgrades are required by the district. The developer will be responsible for all water infrastructure on site. Pressure and storage, we do have the adequate pressure and adequate storage at plant 11, booster pump station and ground storage tank. Estimated cost for the developer will be a total meter service fee of 1.6 million and a water acquisition fee of 516,000. And there will be no anticipated costs on GVSUD for these improvements.
Is that water acquisition fee the previous water acquisition fee?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so will, I guess depending on when payment is made or when
Plan submission.
plan submission.
Right. So the acquisition is done at plan submission, and you guys know impact fee is done at meter set. So acquisition's at plan submission. So it depends on when. If it's after the effective date, it'll be the new fee.
Anybody have any questions?
I just have one comment, not just about this project, but the last few that have brought to the board. I'm seeing a lot of detail in these things that, like, do I, as a board, really need to see the meets and bounds survey? Or I think one of the documents had like an affidavit of heirship showing that, okay, these are the true landowners. I would think that's part of the legal screening, and the board may not need to see, because this makes these individual items pages and pages.
I
and
think a
pages.
lot of that is my former complaints about saying, in something referencing attachment B or attachment C, and then when I go to the attachment, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
I like to see that it's done and there included in the document, so that I don't have to question whether we have, a legal description, or we have whatever was referenced to an attachment. So I think that's my fault, but I would like to see that it's there personally.
Yeah, it just,
What you're being presented with in the packet is the complete contract. So
Right.
those are not just supporting documents. They're incorporated by reference into the document
Oh, I know.
itself. We could definitely pull back some of that so that we don't provide you with the whole contract if you're comfortable with that. But since we've gone electronic, I didn't think it was a big deal that we weren't killing as many trees. But I'm totally amenable to whatever the board's pleasure is on this.
yeah.
And then my only other comment is I always look at the fire flow section, and usually we say we're in the Santa Clara ETJ and they require 1,000 gallons per minute at a specified pressure. We don't list that there. We just say that it has to comply with all regulations. We're able to provide the required fire flow for this. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm like you, I'm completely good with that we need to see, okay, is fire flow there? Where's our taking source, such as that in the map overlays that we get? Okay, it gets us a perspective. Okay, where are we drawing this from? How are we supplying it?
It's in the feasibility study too. That's also in the board packet. Now, I will admit, we got them out of order a little bit. So the wastewater feasibility study is behind the water, and it's vice versa in your board packet. So if you look, I'll admit we screwed that up.
Paper packet on the way
Yeah.
to the copier.
Yeah, we did.
This Gerke tract, is that considered that Grace Valley development, or is that a separate development?
It's separate. It's right. It's adjacent to it, the Grace Valley.
Like Lennar's going to town out there.
So the first one that we're going to vote on is going to be the water, correct? Because both of these say sewer shed.
I'll make a motion that we approve the non-standard service agreement for water for the Gerke track with Lennar Homes.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sherman and a second by Mr. King. Any other discussion? We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to J2, Gerke Track, Lennar Homes, wastewater NSSA, east of Peyton Place and north of Wheel Road, Santa Clara Sewer Shed.
Similar to the water non-standard service agreement, this is for the wastewater, and it's for 250 EDUs. The wastewater will be treated at the Santa Clara Creek #1 wastewater treatment plant. The developer will be responsible for all the on-site infrastructure as well as off-site improvements to extend the gravity main connecting to the adjacent GB Sud trunk line at Ann Austin Development and Grace Valley Development. The estimated cost for the developer in kayak fees will be $1.4 million, which would be approximately $5,985 per EDU. The developer is responsible for the cost of including a lift station and force main, an off-site lift station and force main. This agreement comes at no anticipated cost to GB Sud.
Any additional easements required offsite?
I don't know the answer to that right now. Gary might have. a
The,
little-
the only reason there would be additional easements is there's some right-of-way work going on out there, so it depends on what City of Santa Clara and Guadalupe County require for plating on the right-of-way. So if it overtakes existing easements, yes, there would be acquisition. If not, if they can stay within the existing right-of-way, I assume there's going to be a right-of-way take, so there will likely be some.
But easement acquisition would be funded by this developer?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, all the NSSAs say that that's all funded by the.
And
developer.
then the next question, I'm not sure who I'm directing it to, the flow will go to the Santa Clara plant, and it says it will utilize future plant expansion capacity. We know we need an expansion. We know we're at 38% flow, whatever it is right now. Are we floating the check a little bit if we approve this for capacity? Or
This would be served out of the 0.5 package plant expansion. So the feasibility states that that plant has to be online before this development gets service. So the expansion that is being funded through the TCEQ bond would have to be on.
so if we have any type of a delay or any type of a hiccup, we can not set a meter on these residences, even if they're ready, until flow is available.
Contract state that. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Then y'all have addressed my concern there. Thank you.
The water agreement called out 258 total EDUs, but this is only 250.
8 of
EDUs.
those were irrigation meters.
I'm sorry?
8 of those were irrigation meters, not houses.
Yeah, they've got landscape irrigation added into their total for impact fees.
Yeah, so those don't count towards the wastewater.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I will make, I'm sorry, my thing just moved. I lost it. Sorry. I will make a motion that we approve the non-standard service agreement for wastewater for the Gerke tract with Lennar Homes.
I have a second. I have a motion by Mr. Sherman and a second by Mr. King. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
J3 already.
Yeah, we did J3. Okay. Item K, hear updates on the items below from GVSA General Counsel and take action as necessary. We don't have anything?
I'm sorry, no, I don't have anything new to report right now.
Okay. Executive session, post-executive session. Item N, consideration and possible action on items discussed. We didn't have anything, no actions taken. Consideration, item O, consideration of proposed items to be included on next month's board meeting agenda.
Oh, yes, thank you. The ARWA Water Development Board funding, that needs to be on Green Valley's October 24th meeting to meet the deadlines for ARWA. Thank you for reminding me.
Is this regarding the?
This is-
that
this
building
is-
going to be in there?
This is, no, this is regarding ARWA's planned expansion. We're taking the next step, and then we're also bringing in GBRA is partnering. We've discussed that openly at ARWA on the planned expansion. So ARWA needs all of its members to agree to the funding, each entity's portion. And we went through it yesterday. There's a whole, deadlines, so that we can take action with all of our, ARWA can take action with all the members haven't already taken action. So
Wondering as a follow-on thought, how much staff is ARWA carrying right now?
not a lot. GBRA is going to operate the plant and the system, at a cost, so minimal. But it will have to expand once they come online slightly, but
Yeah.
minimal at this point.
Wondering too, I can't remember when we briefly discussed it was time to have, now his name escapes me.
Mr. Moore,
Yeah.
Executive Director.
Come talk to us again. Has that kind of been the stuff we had questions for been addressed or?
I would bet he would attend our meeting to ensure any questions that could hold up the overall program funding or address. Yeah, please invite him.
Because he hasn't been to see us. I think we talked about it. He hasn't been to see us to talk to us directly in a while.
James needs to have an opportunity to talk about
Yes,
building.
Yeah, I would love to talk about.
So,
building
so James,
before-
take your meds that day.
Take my meds and I will drink Mountain Dew.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item P, adjournment.
I'm making a motion to adjourn with an asterisk that this is the shortest meeting I've ever been involved in 2 years.
Great job, Sherry. Second.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. King, a second by Mr. Sherman. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Meeting adjourned. Time is 11:21.
Good job, Sherry.